Hello, beautiful people. There is no introduction. I attempted to try to put together my intro to reconstitute it from my files, which were on a backup hard drive. Many of you may know that I toasted my previous rather expensive laptop. Sigh. Um, so yeah, I tried to re-render the last version of the intro animation that I have, and I'm on my older computer, and it was made with a newer version of my video software, and I could not reconstitute it. So apologies, particularly to the Praetorian Chads who make all of this possible. Also, Cyberpunk Internal Affairs, who produced the awesome music for that intro. As soon as I get my faster laptop repaired, basically they're going to replace everything in it, having gutted it. I will have that intro. So thanks to those who do support the channel, despite the fact that I could not open with my normal introductory sequence. First off, let me just tell everyone what's going to happen tonight, and then I will shill a couple things and we will get started. I am going to be talking about the great game again. As promised in a recent stream, I realized that a whole lot of people started following this channel when I was regularly speaking with Mr. Tim, and we would look at the great game on the game board, as it were. And I've not been doing that for a while, partly because Tim got very ill and then died. Also, I've been backed up against a wall with having to sell my house, put everything in storage, find a new house and buy it, ship everything here, get settled in. But finally, I'm coming to the end of that. So we're going to be taking a look at the Great Game Board in reference to some things that I've been looking at in the past. East Mediterranean energy and natural gas, countries like Egypt and Libya and Cyprus and Greece. That's kind of going to be a secondary theater that we're going to take a look at. And the primary one will be around the Black Sea, though we'll also look at a couple of other areas. Did I mention Libya? Also, we should probably look at some alternative energy routes that are likely currently being blocked coming up from West Africa through the Sahel. So anyway, all of this provides context for the war in the Ukraine. It also, I believe, will shed some light, perhaps, on what is going on with Turkey. And yeah, so it's kind of going to be bringing up to date a great deal of speculation that Tim and I engaged in the past, and applying it to our present circumstances. I've had to dive in and get up to speed again with the geopolitics stuff, and there really is something to that. You have to kind of paddle out and catch the wave of information as it's coming out and ride it. And I think I can do that to a considerable extent. I've had accurate and very inaccurate predictions in the past. So as usual, this is all speculation. I offer it to you as valuable, if at all, insofar as it shows you new ways to look at things, or perhaps ways of viewing what's going on that you might not as yet have been exposed to. So yeah, we're going to be looking at Black Sea power plays. And hopefully the speed of my connection will be sufficient for me to share some things on screen with you as we go forward. So shilling, buy my book, buy book now. Two books, actually, a book of poetry, Cinders from the Bloomery of Youth, and a book that's basically a sci-fi novella, sort of cyberpunk-ish, set in Istanbul in the year 2076. There are links for both of those in the description box below. Click on those. You can also support the channel through Subscribestar and GoFundMe. Thanks very much again to everyone who does. What else? Any other? Follow me on Twitter, on Minds, on Gab, on Odyssey, definitely, on Telegram, definitely. And BitChute, God help you if that's the only alternative left. In addition to their own internal problems, apparently they've been getting hammered by people who want to smear them. No surprise. What else? I believe I have a stream coming up with Philosophicat fairly soon. That will be over on her channel. I'll leave it up to her to announce the specific date and the subject. What else? I believe I will soon be doing a stream with a certain poet. and the two of us will be talking about poetry. These are always streams that very few people come to check out, but that's probably a good thing, much like the Andrew Marvell stream over on AA's channel, or the Andy Warhol streams that D was central to putting together. So yeah, there will be some discussion of poetry. And what else? There's another one coming up. I feel ridiculous. Yes, Sunday. This Sunday, monster trucks. This Sunday, we will have the next installment of the Light in Darkness series with the inimitable Anteos. And for this one, it's been a long time in the making. He's been doing quite a bit of research on this. And we're going to be continuing to track the history of secret societies and secret services and their sort of hidden hands in the affairs of men. This one will be on the Masonic commune of Paris. And Anteos wants to emphasize that calling it the Masonic Commune of Paris is in no way an exaggeration. So that's going to be coming up this Sunday. So I guess this is a good point for me to check to see how we are doing with the audio and the video. Let me know whether or not everything looks like it should. And I'm going to more safely pour myself a beverage over here in the don't spill it on your computer zone, and light myself a cigarette, and we can get started. Yes, let me just put that over there. No more major wardrobe malfunctions. Okay. So yeah, I've been trying to figure out what is going on with Turkey for a while. The general sense that I've had, and I can't imagine that I'm unique in this, is that Turkey is trying to play all sides and to make the most of the various opportunities in front of it. Obviously, it has a certain range of obligation to NATO, but they pursued their own policy in a number of respects. Certainly, they're close neighbors and historical competitors with Russia. And so you would expect there to be some cooperation and considerable friction there. Indeed, that is the case. But there's been a regular pattern of Turkey going after Russia in a few places. So partnering with the Azerbaijanis to push back in Nagorno-Karabakh, or Artsakh, as they call it. Certainly, they have been providing Bayraktar drones to Ukraine. It's not surprising, since Russia is basically at war with NATO command and control, moving the pieces on the board of the Ukrainian armed forces, probably with considerable assistance from NATO countries, intelligence services, and, if I had to guess, special operations, though of course they'd want to be pretty careful with that. So yeah, it's not surprising that Turkey would be involved in what's going on in Ukraine, but it fits together with a larger pattern. As I said, you've got Artsakh, you've got Ukraine. Arguably, some people have claimed that Turkey played some role in the abortive oddness that went on just a short time back in Kazakhstan. Turkey is also, in a very large way, basically getting sand in the gears of Russia's operation in Syria. Turkey is also right up against Russia in Libya. And that's a rather confusing situation. Now, people who followed the channel for some time will have seen previous discussions, either with both me and Tim, or myself alone, where we've talked about Libya, we've talked about Syria, we've talked about pipelines that could or may run through Central Asia in various spots. We've talked about Russia sort of trying to figure out how to keep China from completely going around it. Also, how to keep its influential position in terms of selling energy to Europe. All that is up in the air right now. So we're going to go back and look at some things we looked at in the past, because things have either unfrozen and begun to move again in certain places, or we're seeing that while people thought it was going to unfreeze and move again, it's now freezing back up again. There's a lot of that kind of oddness going on the board, and it has to do basically with a European move that all flies under the banner of diversification. Yes, but not that kind of diversification. Though, of course, these things go hand in hand as these things inside the pause always do. In this case, they want to diversify their energy sources. So it's much more difficult for Russia to unilaterally create economic problems by turning off the taps. Um, so you have a lot of countries that historically were in the Russian orbit that are trying to pull free of it. Obviously, you've got countries like Poland that are very belligerent about it. The factions within the Ukraine, particularly, of course, the west of Ukraine, that are very belligerent about it, serious about it. Um, and then you've got other countries that are kind of stuck in the middle, but they're seeing energy prices going through the roof. Countries like Bulgaria. Um, and then there's the question of looking at the larger sort of Black Sea area in general and what's going on there. You guys have probably heard me on a number of occasions say that I think there's a whole lot going on here with energy in the Black Sea, the potential energy, and the way in which all of that can be brought to bear on pipelines, transit corridors, and the rest to reshape or maintain, depending on what position you're taking. For example, the EU versus Russia, to either reshape or maintain existing sort of balances of power with who provides energy and how it's routed. These sorts of things. So let us, if we can, ladies and gentlemen, start with a map. And this also is going to be something of a test for me to make sure that with my new rural internet connection that I'm going to be able to do this and have it work. So if we have any kind of problems with the image, let me know. I also haven't seen anything here in the chat about there being audio or video issues. So I'm going to assume that everything is cool at the moment. If that is not the case, do let me know. First, allow me to wet my beak and we will jump into this. Let's see how this map does. Okay, there's the map. Let me plug it on screen. You guys let me know if it's causing any problems. All right. So hopefully y'all can see this map. Now, this is just to refresh everybody's awareness, for those of you who are not particularly good with geography. Let me go ahead and zoom in. I forget what screen I'm supposed to do it on because I am a boomer. Okay, so here in the center of the screen, you can see the Black Sea, right? And what do we see around it? To the north, we see Crimea, where the historic where the Russian Navy has historically had a naval base, Sevastopol, there on the Crimean Peninsula, which of course Russia annexed some time back. I don't know, what was it, 8-9 years ago, something like that. And then above that, Ukraine proper. Let me zoom out, make it easier actually for you to see the country's outlines without all the confusing stuff in it. So yeah, you can see Ukraine here. And it's important to take a look here at what countries border the Black Sea, because those are going to be the countries that can make a claim to energy resources on the shelf or in the deeper parts of it, right? Based on claims under international law for their exclusive economic zone. So you've got Ukraine, and let's just go ahead and take this clockwise. I already mentioned Crimea, which is under the control of Russia. There is a considerable part of that southern region of Ukraine that beyond Crimea that Russia has now taken control of. Then as we move clockwise around it, let's zoom in because it's a little bit harder to make out these countries from a distance. Hopefully this will work. I'm sorry, you guys are seeing the limits of the speed here, but you've got the Straits of Kerch right here. Russia put a bridge in there so that they can sort of control anybody who comes in and out of the Sea of Azov. And now, as I understand it, they control all the coastline of the Sea of Azov. They've turned it, quote, into their lake, right? But it's important to understand Sevastopol over here, the naval base, projecting out into the Black Sea, sort of dominating it strategically. It allows them to dominate also whatever coastline here on the Black Sea in the south remains to Ukraine around Odessa. There are a number of people saying that it looks like they're going to go for Odessa. When this first started, I said my take was that they were going to get all of the coastline of the Sea of Azov, and that they would take all of the Black Sea coastline proper as well. So my view has been and continues to be that they're going to go for Odessa as well, and further, I should add. Very likely, whether directly or indirectly, and it could go either way. We'll get to that, but I believe they're definitely going to be heading for Odessa. So that would give Russia. I mean, it's already got most of this control, but it's going to give it control. Over here as far as at least the Dniester. Oops, over here, at least as far as God. Get rid of these fucking pop-ups, man. I can't even make this map work. Ugh. I hate technology, people. Okay, anyway, I'm becoming tiresome. So yeah, that's going to give Russia control over as far as Transnistria, the mouth of the Dniester River, right over here, and continuously over here to the area of Abkhazia, and then their control, or direct or indirect, of the coastline drops off because you've got Georgian coastline here, and Georgia has been, consistently sort of heading more towards the west for quite some time. Now, what I'm hearing is, and this is from, I don't mean I have personal sources, but what I'm seeing and hearing from just reviewing material online, some people are making a case that Georgia is kind of waffling now, and that there might be factions there that want to head back into the orbit of Russia. I don't know if there's any truth to that, but there it is. Some people think it might be happening. Then there is, of course, all of this Black Sea coastline in the south here, former kingdoms of Pontus, Sinop, Samsun, Trabzon, all these kind of places. That's all Turkish Black Sea coastline. Now, here you've got a bit with Turkish, what you could call European Turkey over here on the other side of the Bosphorus, on the European side of the Straits. Then you have Bulgaria and you have Romania. Moldova really doesn't have any way to, up here. Moldova doesn't have any way really to get out to the sea. Transnistria controls the Dniester. Although I guess there is a very small little section of Moldovan territory that extends out into the Danube at the other side of it, of the country. I believe it's right down in this area right here, and they've got a little port there. I looked on the maps, and it looks like they have some sort of gas terminal there. So Moldova can get to the sea just a bit over here on the Danube, but it does it at the sufferance of Romania. Now, this was to review all the potential players that you could see fooling around here. Now, Romania and Bulgaria are NATO members, so you've got, as is Turkey, and so there's plenty of a pretext for I'm sorry, they're EU members, and I'm not sure what their status is vis-a-vis NATO, but of course, Turkey is a NATO member. I'm not sure what the military relationship there is with Bulgaria and Romania, but with Turkey certainly, controlling the Straits, being a NATO member, you could expect to see Western warships go in here. But you've still got Russia in a position. Get these fucking maps out of here. If they're not dominant, to become dominant, and the biggest competitor for influence over the Black Sea, certainly the biggest naval power, would be Turkey with its Turkish Navy. So you've got this Black Sea here, and it's surrounded by these various nations who could make claims to it. You have to understand that historically it was a place of clashing between Turkey and Russia. There's a sort of one climactic incidence of this. Charlemagne just pointed out Romania and Bulgaria are both NATO members, so thanks for clearing that up. A lot of this I'm going to be playing catch up on because, as I mentioned, I've just gotten back into this again, so I'm having to get up to speed. And I've gotten help from people. Apostolic Majesty, for example, helped me out with some good points about Montenegro earlier in the evening. Some other people on Twitter, and so I thank them for that. But I think what I can offer here is a bigger interrelated picture than you're going to get anywhere else that I'm aware of. So we reviewed these players on the coast to want to understand who can make claims here. Historically, Russia exercised influence. Russia, back when this area over by Moldova was Bessarabia or Bessarabia. Um, Soviet Union later, when it was, a Moldovan um, Soviet Socialist Republic or whatever, Ukraine, Romania, Bulgaria, all these countries have been under Russian influence for quite some time, but it went back and forth. So the Ottomans also controlled this European sort of area of Thrace. And as far up as parts of Romania, Wallachia at different times. I mean, hell, when they were allied to the Golden Horde, they had much of all of the Crimean Peninsula and some of this northern Black Sea littoral as well. Shit, most of it, all of it, for a time. But all that really started to shift in the 18th century, and their influence dwindled, particularly in the second half of the 19th century. So historically, you can see the countries that are players here, so to speak. Bulgaria and Romania are backed by the EU and NATO. Turkey as well, though the relationship with the EU is a bit different. Georgia keeps trying to come in to this game, and things happen like South Ossetia, and they're increasingly going towards the west, it would seem. And so what we see here is a region where there's historically been a lot of back and forth. There's been conflict between Russia and Turkey. The European powers, France and England, came in, and Britain, I should say, and joined up with the Turks for the Crimean War. So you can see the background for all of this, right? But the important thing that we have to understand about the recent past is that Russia's influence has been waning. Turkey has been in NATO for a while, so that part of the coastline doesn't count. But Georgia was once well in the orbit of the Russians. Abkhazia was less inclined to be so, though it was locked in. That has shifted because of the nature of the what's been going on the ground with Georgia going further to the west, things like Soros money being dumped there, and that whole sort of valley that runs along south of the Caucasus that is being used as an energy conduit right now. And again, I'll point people to the fact that there's stuff that's been going on further east with Kazakhstan over here, and all the energy infrastructure that exists around here. Azerbaijan that possibly had Turkey involved. Azerbaijan that certainly had Turkey involved. Turkey getting involved over here in Ukraine, and as well as Syria and Libya that I've already mentioned. But the point is that Russia's being pushed back, where it formerly had control of much of this coastline, or had countries basically like they're in Russia's orbit, forced to be so or otherwise. Much of this northern area was under Russia's control. Though, as I said, over here with what used to be called the Danubian Principalities, that went back and forth between the Ottomans and the Russians. And that should be a signal to us today, because we're seeing Turkey vie in a number of respects with Russia in this domain. Now, certainly much of that is Turkey acting as some kind of a cat's paw for NATO. But let's jump into this. Okay, so where is the one I'm looking for? Yeah. Now here's an article. This is from a little ways back. This is from a little over a year ago. But they're talking about Black Sea emerging as an energy battleground, right? These are Turkish prospecting ships that are drilling platforms and the rest that have gone into the Black Sea. They've also been traveling around the Eastern Mediterranean, trying to strike it big. Now they claim that they have found this field as of about a year ago called Tuna 1 or something, and that's Tuna is a name in Turkish that has nothing to do with tuna fish. Tuna it's actually it's probably a surname as well as a woman's name. Anyway, let's see here. What do they have to say? Black Sea hasn't received much attention. There was a CEPA strategy paper that noted that the Black Sea region wasn't only a frontier between West and Russia, but also a meeting point of four great forces. Democracy in the West, of course, they have to characterize it that way. Democracy, the great opiate of the masses. Russian military aggression to the north. We're not trying to characterize this in any way. Doesn't sound like a value-free analysis to me. Growing Chinese financial influence to the east and Middle Eastern instability to the south. So basically, they talk about how the West has to come up with some strategy to deal with this instability. And they want to bring what they say such a vision would consolidate security on NATO's southeastern flank. It would bring alliance members Bulgaria, Romania, and Turkey closer together with NATO's strongest partners, Georgia and Ukraine. Well, you can see what's happening to Ukraine right now. And I will guarantee you that people in Georgia are looking very, very closely at what is happening in Ukraine. I would say also it's very likely that Turkey is watching very, very closely indeed to see what goes down in the Ukraine. Now, let's just quickly tap the business of what kind of gas reserves are said to be there. They say the exact volumes of gas currently lying deep underneath the Black Sea are not yet known. Rough estimates predict that the Ukrainian shelf may contain more than 2 trillion cubic meters of gas. The exact figure is yet to be determined since 2/3 of the country's maritime area passed to de facto Russian control following Moscow's illegal annexation of Crimea in 2014. Ukraine's state energy company, Naftogaz, is preparing to explore 32 remaining blocks. One wonders if Naftogaz is still up to that at the moment. They probably have other things on their mind. Meanwhile, Turkey made international headlines in 2020 when it said reserves at its offshore Tuna Bir exploration zone may be as high as 405 billion cubic meters. Further reserves could be discovered in adjacent blocks. To the west, Romania is thought to hold anything between 150 and 200 billion cubic meters of offshore reserves, being one of the most advanced littoral countries in terms of developing resources. Bulgaria's total reserves are unknown, but just one of its as yet unexplored fields, Khan Asparu, is thought to contain 100 billion cubic meters. If this figure proves to be correct, these reserves alone could cover the country's annual demand for more than 30 years. To the east, Georgia may have overall recoverable gas resources of 266 billion cubic meters, although how much of these reserves lie in its Black Sea economic zone has yet to be determined. In recent months, Romanian Austrian integrated oil and gas company OMV Petrom, which has been developing Romania's Neptune Deep project together with U.S. company ExxonMobil, has been seeking cooperation opportunities with neighboring countries. So these guys in Romania just signed a deal with Naftogaz in Ukraine, and they were going to be going after exploring and developing all of these areas. The issue, however, as we saw from our map, which I'll return to, is that the facts of the situation on the ground are changing quite a bit as regards this whole picture with the Russian special military action, or whatever the hell they're calling it, in Ukraine. Now we're going to have to jump a little bit further afield, as I said, to put this into a broader context. Let's back up on this map and see what we're really dealing with here. Again, I apologize for my slow connection, ladies and gentlemen. All right, hopefully you guys are going to be able to sort of understand where the various countries are I'm referencing to, because now at this point, with the map being of this size, it's going to be harder for you to make out the copy, I guess, unless you happen to have a high resolution image. All right, so what do we have here? We have a situation where Europe wants to, quote unquote, diversify. How is Europe going to do that? Because 50% for countries like Germany, one of the biggest, if not the biggest, industrial player in Europe, 50% of their energy is coming from Russia. Now, in the past, what happened was a lot of that was passing through Ukraine, and Ukraine would play games, and Russia would play games back. And in a lot of ways, with the pipelines that ran through it into Europe, but in a lot of ways that benefited Russia, because, you know, the threat of instability in Ukraine was a real threat of all kinds of gas being shut down back in the day. Since then, a number of these countries have tried to diversify, as they continuously call it. We've got the we've got the Nord Stream 1 and 2 pipelines that are set. Nord Stream 2 is just additional capacity on Nord Stream 1 that would come into Germany through the Baltic Sea. So Ukraine isn't quite as important there. And Russia also has a Turk Stream pipeline now that comes down into Turkey. Turkey is trying to carry gas from Azerbaijan and possibly from other countries like Kazakhstan, maybe Iran. The details of that don't get discussed. Apparently, they've got something called a SWEP, which is I believe that's a protocol. Let's double check here so I don't miss um, how that works. SWEP is an acronym, SWEP. Um, Maybe I misunderstood this, but as I understood, SWEP has to do with a program. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to find it now at this rate, and I'll keep you guys hanging. But so let's leave the acronym out. But what I had hoped to what I had hoped it referred to, so I got it all straight in my head, was the process of passing through energy resources from other countries through a given pipeline um, under standards that permitted it, but that tend to introduce a great deal of ambiguity about where it actually came from. So you've got gas that's going to be running from Azerbaijan through Turkey up into Bulgaria. You got Russian gas running down into these areas as well. Romania, Moldova, and Bulgaria are trying to get off the Russian gas teat, um, but they're not going to be able to do it as quickly, probably, as they like. Um, and it's gonna require somebody dumping money into those countries to develop that infrastructure. And despite the fact that things are getting much better there, there's considerable corruption and problems. And Bulgaria, if I remember correctly, is among the poorest countries in the EU. So there's some questions there. Romania seems to be important to them. We'll get to that in a second. Actually, I'm getting too granular here. So you have pipelines coming in this way. Ukraine, though, is wanting to cause problems. You saw that there was static with Belarus and Poland. Belarus is staying very much within the orbit of Russia, whereas leaving out Kaliningrad over here, the Baltic states and the rest of these up in the Baltic Sea, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, they have gone towards the west. So Russia is trying to maintain the ability to keep a short front across this part of Europe, as I've talked about in the past. So there's a Russian energy flowing into these countries, places like Germany. The EU is trying to sanction Russia and cause them problems as a result of what's going on in the Ukraine. But it just seems like a crazy Chinese fire drill. Actually, that's a bad metaphor in this case because I don't want to reference China in any way. It's a particular type of bureaucratic, technocratic, Euro commie central planning that just seems to have lost the plot. And to be honest with you, from everything I've seen regarding all that, it looks like it's little more than an enormous set of pretexts to allow them to further centralize control and reshape how people are allowed to run energy in there. And quite possibly, as many people have opined, the basis for um, a set of pretextual antecedents that would justify a lot of this, World Economic Forum, Build Back Better, Great Reset, green energy, climate control, zero carbon, all that crap. Eat the bugs, bigot. So what other ways could Europe get energy in? Well, they've been trying for a while with Iran. Under Trump, sanctions were put on them again. Maybe through Azerbaijan, they could do something where they can pass gas through Turkey. Pass gas, indeed, up into the rest of Europe in order to meet some of their needs. Now we have to take a look here at the Eastern Mediterranean, because this is all a part of that story. See, they've been trying to push Russia out of the Black Sea, or reduce its influence and its control there. Russia seems to be very aggressively saying not just no, but hell no. We're not going to tolerate that. And so that seems to me what all of this is about. If Russia takes all of the coastline up here to Odessa, then, basically they're going to be able to connect right here with Transnistria. And that means that they're going to have a main line running straight into Moldova, which is historically was Bessarabia, and for quite some time has been in the Russian orbit of control prior to the emergence of the USSR. I think that Russians controlled Bessarabia or something, under that name or a similar one from, I think, like in the first few years of the 1800s, maybe 1812, somewhere in there. Sounds right. Up through, with the Napoleonic stuff, up through the end of the First World War, or somewhere in and around the First World War. So this Moldova has historically been an area of Russian control, and I believe it has to do with the industrial importance of the Dniester. Also, it's a strategic importance and the way it runs up through here into the western parts of Ukraine. But so when Russia cruises across here, they're going to be able to connect with folks who are already set up there. I think they have a garrison. And public sources indicate that they've got like 1,500 Russian troops there. I'm sure that they could call on any number of irregulars, as they've done in the east of the Ukraine. But it suggests that they may be making a move. I'm not saying that they're going to annex Moldova, but I think it's certainly very likely that that Moldova could end up falling entirely back in the grip of Russia, and we're gonna come back to that in a minute. But first, I have to jump down here, as I said I was going to do before I got sidetracked to the East Mediterranean. Now, you guys will have heard me talking about this area along the bottom end of Turkey that's been called Kurdistan, or the north part of Syria, and it runs up here into Iraq, and it continues into Iran. In fact, there are Kurds all up through here into Georgia and other countries in the Caucasus. I don't doubt they're in Azerbaijan too. They're all over the joint. But the main area here, you've got the mountainous parts of Turkey, and then you've got a pretty clean straight shot across this desert where you could be running pipelines, oil and natural gas from Iran, Iraq, and even from, presumably from some parts of Syria, though I haven't looked at where their resources specifically are. And so we talked at length about how Turkey is down here in Idlib, and how we all know that they've moved across the border on a number of occasions and established a buffer zone and made incursions into areas like Afrin. And we know that in recent news, Erdogan was talking about how he may have to go in there again, and how the Turks might be preparing to invade Syria again. Now, I've looked to try to understand what's going on in Syria, and I haven't seen a lot. Before I get to that, let me just tell you, we're looking at this area because Europe is trying to find energy. It's trying to diversify. It's trying to get out of the death grip for a considerable portion of its energy needs that Russia has it in. And so you would expect they would go looking for other areas, other resources, other ways to get natural gas to them. We've seen that they're beginning to work increasingly with Turkey, and Turkey is having a number of pipelines that do cross here. We've seen that Turkey, as a cat's paw for NATO, most likely, has been asserting its influence in Azerbaijan, which probably has to do with that valley and running some things to Georgia. If it doesn't, it has to do with getting around frozen conflicts that have been created in Armenia at Nagorno-Karabakh, so that they can run their pipelines more neatly from Azerbaijan into Turkey and across in any number of ways to Greece, or, transshipping them with tankers, or, maybe even later doing something with vessels on the Black Sea. But they can certainly do it with pipelines at this point and get stuff into some areas of the Eastern Balkans here. But they need other routes. They need to diversify. No single one of these solutions in and of itself is sufficient to answer their energy needs. So Tim and I were looking at this quite some time back, and we spent a long time looking at Eastern Mediterranean gas reserves. In the Eastern Med, there's all kinds of gas that has appeared and seems to be viable. Some of the gas fields, like Goliath and other ones that the Israelis have, have come online. There are a number of these gas fields off the coast of Egypt. Um, they're not enough to be like, a big deal like energy exporter like Russia. But when you start talking about what's available in the territorial waters of Israel, of Egypt, of Lebanon, and possibly areas around Cyprus. There's a Aphrodite field as well, and Cyprus has great deep water ports, which is why Britain has very quietly and sub rosa maintained uh, its influence there, and that's why Turkey came in the 70s and took part of it, because this is a key. This is a major key to all of the Eastern Mediterranean, kind of linking in a chain here with Crete. People who are into World War II will be familiar with the importance of Crete. So anyway, there were plans. You had Egypt, and I may be forgetting some now because it's been a year or more now since I looked into this most deeply. But Egypt and Israel and European Cyprus and Greece and Italy were totally on board to run a pipeline from gas fields over here, and maybe it would be liquefaction facilities. I don't know. Maybe the pipeline would run from here over to Cyprus, or maybe it would start at Cyprus. But at any rate, it was going to run over to Crete, and then it was going to go to Greece, and then eventually to Italy. And that looked like it could be big stuff. That would be a major pipeline. Turkey was all pissy about it, man. They did not like it. And for a while there, all kinds of Turkish ships were swarming around in the East Mediterranean prospecting, getting in the way of other people prospecting. And Erdogan did this big show of partnering with Libya and claiming through some signed memorandum with the so-called Government of National Unity, which does not have control there at this point, though it's backed by a bunch of EU powers. A bunch of splits as regards that. Libya we'll get to in a minute, and it's hard to understand. But Turkey signed a deal with Libya, with one of the two governments of Libya, saying that, no, this is their exclusive deal, and that if anybody were going to put a pipeline across this, they'd have the right to veto it or get in the way of it or chisel a piece off of it. And all that was going on. And, Israel and Turkey have not had good relations now for a while. They on and off again, they try and sort it out, but it doesn't seem to hold up. They keep having tension. And, all going back to the Mavi Marmara stuff, and Erdogan liking to invoke shit about how the Palestinians are treated, to get a bump in his domestic, opinion polls or whatever. But then the Turks just kind of got more quiet about it. I wouldn't say that they stopped making their claims, and I wouldn't say that all the pressure disappeared, but a lot of the noise that you were hearing about them saying, woof, 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 you can't do this with this energy stuff. We want to play the role as the transit corridor with Europe. It just got kind of quiet. And that was roughly around the same time, which was roughly about a year ago, that they announced that they had this big find in the Black Sea at the Tuna 1 field. And so I'd been talking about, it looks like Turkey might be getting cut in on the deal with northern, to the north there in the Black Sea with energy there. They've got a huge army, third or fourth probably largest in the world, somewhere in there, certainly not lower than the fifth largest. And they have considerable naval resources. And yeah, it looked like they were getting dealt in at the table here at the Black Sea. And that probably has something to do with them saying, okay, we will sell drones to the Ukrainians, and we will push back on the Russian proxies in Armenia vis-a-vis or via our own relationships with Azerbaijan, possibly stuff over here in Kazakhstan, as I mentioned. And certainly Turkey continued to cause problems for Russia in terms of what Russia wants to do in Syria, and Turkey continued to cause problems over in Libya, backing up the Government of National Unity. Whereas on the other side, you had, let's see if we can get country names on here. On the other side of things, you had Egypt lined up together with, I believe it was France and Russia with the Wagner Group mercenaries, um, backing the GNU. I'm sorry, no, what was it? Government of National Unity is in on one side over here, and the competing government, more or less out of Benghazi, backed by Haftar and a few other guys who have come forward um, in the east, was backed by Egypt, by Russia, by some factions in France. And then the other weird thing, as I've mentioned before, is that Haftar himself, his family members live in Northern Virginia, which kind of suggests he's got some glow on him, which speaks of some weird playing both side stuff going on in terms of US intelligence services and the situation in Libya. But anyway, this is all about freezing Libya so energy can't come out of there. Russia came in and asserted its former weak presence in Syria, which is a client state of theirs, with their airfields and naval base. I think it's Latakia and Tartus, I want to say, which are right up here in this area. So Turkey came in and said, no, we're going to try to block this off. And so Syria is currently frozen. Libya is currently frozen. And then there's a whole path of energy. Because remember, the context for this is Europe trying to get new energy, and Russia keeps cutting them off. And they've actually got a hot war going over here in Ukraine, which I believe has a great deal, or it is driven in large part by a future energy picture for Europe that involves the Black Sea. And Russia is just like, not just no, but hell no, we're not going to be dealt out of that picture. And Russia said, we're going to keep a toehold in the Eastern Mediterranean because they can make claims to this offshore area as well, Syria's territorial waters, and that would make them a part of the mix of what's happening here with energy, which is why they've been willing to dump blood and treasure into propping up Assad. So what are the other options? Well, Egypt wanted to get in with Israel, and they have sort of agreed to cooperate in a variety of ways. They wanted to go with this East Med pipeline. And then within the last year, I think really within the last 6 or 8 months, Biden appeared and said, or some Biden spokesperson, more accurately, appeared and said, no, the East Med pipeline is off. But now that's before the war started in Ukraine. And Turkey was being quiet. Like they said, oh, well, maybe we don't care about that much about the East Med stuff that we were barking and woofing and howling about so much. Maybe we don't care about it as much. They just went quiet. Next thing you know, Biden says that this pipeline from Israel to Cyprus and Crete and Greece and Italy, that's off the table. It's not going to happen, as if it's fucking Biden's job to say that it can't happen. But he did. Apparently everybody was getting ready to really rock and roll over here in the Black Sea. And then the war started in Ukraine, and they said, oh shit, what are our other options? Well, I'm going to get to those in a second. I have to finish the full review. Libya is frozen. It has begun producing some more energy, but most of it is coming out of the far west of the country, well out of the range of the competing government in the east. But they have all kinds of problems with what they like to call, rat lines of human trafficking. And the country is not a country right now. It is absolutely a lawless zone. Don't let anyone tell you any different. It's a bunch of bullshit. It's totally a lawless, like Wild West type scene in Libya. So what are the other options? One of them is to run a pipeline up from Nigeria, through Niger, through Algeria, across the straits to Spain. And that would be a Western strategy to get energy into Europe. Now, up here in the north, they're still getting energy from Russia. Up until these latest sanctions and all this other stuff, even still, they're still getting energy from Russia. And the U.S. can easily, with its ships, send over liquefied natural gas. So they're getting energy, but they want more in, so that the impact of what's going on with Russia, which is still sufficient to totally screw up the EU, they're trying to find some way around that. So one of the ways, as I said, is to come from Nigeria, and it's under discussion, all kinds of plans for it, up through Niger, through Algeria and across the Straits to Spain, which would get it into the EU from this other direction. But there's just this weird stuff that you keep hearing about with the Sahel. And the Sahel is right along here where you've got the transition between sub-Saharan Africa and, the Sahara proper. It's a really fucked up, lawless area. And, they've just got all kinds of violence and warlords and gangs and insurgencies. And gosh, they just can't seem to find any way to like really stabilize that for a pipeline. I suspect what you see there, a lot of European special forces, French, I think, are over in Mali. U.S. special forces are definitely doing stuff all through here, and probably a half dozen others besides that, we never hear about in the headlines. I think what's going on there is that a variety of players, probably China, definitely, in my view, definitely Russia, and maybe even just dissatisfied local warlords who are trying to increase their take, are saying, no, we're going to destabilize this area so you can't get energy reliably out of here by pipeline. So what I'm trying to show you here is a variety of different ways that they've been trying to get energy into Europe, particularly into the Balkans, and into the Mediterranean regions of Europe. And you've got two major things going on. Europe wants the energy. Turkey wants to be the transit point for it, and it wants to get more into the game, producing it itself. Russia is being blocked by Turkey that wants to be the middle. They want to be the man in the middle. There's a Turkish saying that says, aç ayı oynamaz. The hungry bear won't juggle, right? So it means that a bear that you haven't fed isn't going to do tricks for you. And I think what's going on here with Turkey is that they're trying to keep their middle position and make the most of it. The historical thing of being the bridge between Europe and Asia and the rest. They're trying to throw their weight around, and I think that they've gotten clearance to do so. They must have, in many respects, despite all plausible deniability and claims otherwise, from NATO. So you got Russia that wants to get energy into Europe, the Europeans who want to reduce their dependency on it. Turkey wants to advance its position by forcing Russia to the table with them, and they've done so to a certain extent. And eventually, the two biggest naval powers here are going to be Turkey and Russia, which raises some interesting questions about what the future of this territory is going to be like. Turkey, though, is so in with the West that it looks like they are trying to walk a balancing act to make the most from all the parties by pressuring them and playing both sides off against the other, one against the other. How much success they're going to have with that, I don't know. This area that could be producing gas and pushing it out to the coastline and moving it by tanker or pipeline into Europe is frozen at the moment. The area where it could work is Egypt and Israel. And good old Biden just showed up and, some months back and said, oh, no, we're not doing that. You can't do that. And as I said, that was right before shit started to break out more seriously in Ukraine. Now what's happened? Well, let me finish the review. Libya, frozen. And it looked like they were going to unfreeze a little bit. But as best I can tell now, the East and West thing is starting to heat up again, whereas it looked like it was going to calm down. So now, the UN is sending useless people down there to talk to other people who take their orders from elsewhere and so can't even really negotiate on their own behalf. And it's just frozen. They can't get it up through Nigeria because it's blocked with all this activity going on in the Sahel. So they need to find another way to get energy in. So as of about 3 days ago, the German economy minister, let me check my notes on this. Is it on this one or is it on my other sheet? Hell, I can probably remember it. The economy minister for Germany within a few days ago was down in Israel speaking with the Israelis about, new ways or reconsidering the ways that they could be able to bring energy from Israel up into Europe. And guess what? They're talking about how the East Med pipeline is now back on the table again. But the Israeli energy expert that I saw mentioned three possibilities. The quickest and easiest one for Israel to start making some money and getting gas to Europe would be through liquefied natural gas. They could basically just set up their own terminal and get it rolling. um, However, the woman was careful to mention also that there is the possibility of a shorter pipeline to Turkey. I think she said that because they're in ongoing discussion with the Turks. The Turks want to control it again. And Israel is kind of throwing them a bone saying, okay, yeah, maybe we'll consider doing a shorter pipeline up there. In the end, if we can spend the money, we can spend the money. But they don't want to, apparently. And the woman was saying that Israel has had so much trouble with Turkey in the past, and their relationship hasn't been good recently, so it's not ideal for the Israelis. The other option, other than liquefied natural gas or a shorter pipeline to Turkey, is to turn on the whole project and plan for the East Med pipeline again. Now, here it's worth taking a look at what is going on with that situation. Let me see if I can find, yeah, just do yourself, this is from a few days ago, so you might see slightly different headlines now. Um, but if you just do a search, and this is the beautiful thing, once you know where you need to go look, it's very easy to jump around and find out what's actually going on. Um, Israel is setting up a new gas rig, and it's in contested waters, according to the Lebanese, that should be in the Lebanese exclusive economic zone. But Israel says, no, it's in our economic zone. So we can see how the same picture that I talked about in the past with Tim is developing here. As the East Med possibilities come back online again, Lebanon, which is absolutely crushed right now, is squawking and saying, no, we should get a piece of it. And Hezbollah is saying, no, maybe we can attack this gas rig. I mentioned quite explicitly in previous videos that one of the advantages of not having the land pipelines and having the sea-based gas rigs is that you can, sweep all that flat space of water around you with radar. You can have Iron Dome defensive emplacements, as in fact the Israeli drilling operations do. It can be patrolled by the Navy. You're much more obvious if you're getting out there with a surface craft trying to head for an oil rig than you are if you're moving under cover of darkness in scrub or whatever, right? So these facilities should be defensible for the Israelis, but there's a bunch of woofing and problems going on here. Most of them aren't probably going to amount to anything. The analysts that I look at seem to think that Hezbollah might be able to extract some kind of minor concessions with this, but they don't seem to think that it's going to end up sparking a war between Hezbollah and Israel, as we've seen in the past. But the point is that coastline is coming online again now. It looks like, whoever it was who told Biden to say, no, the East Med pipeline isn't going to happen. They said, whoops, maybe we should back up on that. Let's kick some sand backwards in the cat box and maybe find a different way to approach this, because Russia is screwing their plans for what I believe, in my opinion, was a massive development of energy in the Black Sea that would allow them to pull energy resources from there without having to worry about Russia. And I think they've been after it for a long time. I think that they've been planning and angling on this since at least like 2008, and that's based on the stuff with South Ossetia and Georgia. The only reason I remember the date is I was supposed to go to a conference in Kabardino-Balkaria and had it canceled because of that damn thing. So yeah, you can see on the map here that they've been they've been blocked, and so they're trying these new ways, and so now people are trying to work out new or trying to revisit some of these ideas for how to get energy up into Europe. And it looks like Israel will be coming online in some fashion or another. I mean, my guess is that just to meet issues with immediate demand, they're gonna start liquefied natural gas heading up into Europe, coming out of Israeli production facilities, and then they're going to see about other pipeline solutions, just for to get a sense of how much Israel could be pumping out to Europe if they had a full-on pipeline, something like the East Med pipeline that was previously under consideration. Apparently, they could meet about 10% of European needs, and I'm not sure what time scale that's on. So, sorry that I'm not more of a quant guy, but if they did have a full pipeline running and we're sending gas into Europe, it would, handle 10% of their need. Libya, I would expect to see some interesting new things happen there. For now, it's frozen. I think the interesting new things are going to happen there once this stuff gets worked out with the Black Sea and this stuff gets worked out with the Eastern Med. I think you're going to see Libya come online. Um, I don't know that you're going to. I don't know that you're going to see anything with Nigerian gas coming up through here for a while, simply because it has a whole lot of challenges. It's much easier to smuggle replacement populations through that area than it is to run gas. Given that there are clearly parties that want to contest that as a route. I mean, and to be honest with you, it could even include, basically sub-Saharan mercenaries paid by competing energy companies who, one of them wants the pipeline to go through and the other one doesn't. It doesn't even have to be state actors, as crazy and lawless as this area of the Sahel actually is. So let's see, I covered this stuff going on over here with Egypt is also in talks with Europe to provide them with more natural gas. But the thing is that they don't have their shit together enough yet. And the impression I get, I'm no expert on this, but the impression I get is that Israel expects to be the technological and logistical key to the development of this, and that Israel and Egypt are, in agreement on this. We'll see what happens with Libya eventually. Syria, I tried to look into to see what's going on there, and the only takeaway, not being a specialist in the region and not following it daily, the only takeaway is that it seems Idlib is still controlled by the Turks and their proxy militia forces. Call them Islamist mercenaries if you like. The Russians and the Turks are in discussions to resolve the status of Idlib, but they can't reach any kind of agreement on it. And for now, it looks to me as though Turkey is waiting to see what, as indeed I think almost everyone is. They're waiting to see what's going to go down with this whole thing in the Black Sea and Ukraine, in order to know which direction to go. Because with Turkey, I really do believe that, well, how can I present this picture? Ugh. I'm not sure about any of this, ladies and gentlemen. I'm not sure about any of this at all. But right now, it's the hypothesis that has the most explanatory value for me. I think what we're seeing here is that Turkey is right now being unofficially admitted to the EU. They're in NATO. They're a candidate for EU accession. I'm not saying that they will officially be recognized as an EU member country. I'm not saying that they will be admitted to the Schengen zone. But I think what we've been seeing here over the past 5 or 6 years is basically what the pro-European Union integration people in Turkey have always wanted. And it's kind of one of those things like, be careful what you ask for because you might get it. Let me explain what I mean. You have countries like Iran that could be big and significant players, but you saw somebody like the Shah appear, and that guy tried to diversify the Iranian economy, and so that it wasn't only dependent on energy, and it got slapped the fuck down. Turkey is another enormous country. It's definitely quite solidly in the second global power tier at this point. Turkey is a country that has a very diverse economy. It's got, for example, an enormous industry surrounding textiles. It's got ceramics. It's got defense. I mean, people who are into firearms who are following this channel will know that, over the last 5 or 10 years, the US market has been swamped with shitty Turkish shotguns made out of the Black Sea region. And they're the people here, they call it the Kanık. I believe it would be the Canık pistols that are coming out of Turkey being sold in the US. So they're making small arms for the commercial sector. They're developing drones. They've got their own satellite surveillance now. As I said, big textile industry, ceramics. They produce some of their own automobiles. It's a very diverse and developed economy, and a huge population, and a giant military, and a very strong geopolitical position geographically. So when you look at a country like that, and you're one of these great game players, I would have to assume, because all of this is just my speculation, but I would have to assume, huh, well, well, Hans, does it seem like it makes sense for us to allow Turkey to become a, a tier for the nation to arrive at a level where it is, it can compete with these European ones? It has very diverse economy, but now it will also have uh, lots and lots, yeah, of energy income, and a transit for energy. If I were the EU bugmen or the Globo Homo, elite lords or whatever, I would think to myself, well, big ass army, countries built on a nationalist model. So, despite the fact that that's been chipped at and shattered in a number of respects, there's still strong nationalism in Turkey. I would assume so. I haven't been there in 10 years, but even if it's been hammered to nothing, there's still going to be a lot more of it than you would find, for example, in a country like Germany. Um, so, if I were thinking about giving them a seat at the big boy table where they're not just in a very enviable geostrategic position, they don't only just have a very diverse economy. They don't only have a giant army, but now we're going to have them bringing in energy too. So they can not only produce energy and make the profit from selling it to Europe, but they're going to be less on the hook for their own domestic energy, which gives them more autonomy and freedom. What would I ask for if I were a bugman, Lord of Globo Homo with, a rainbow flag on my little Velcro shoulder patch? Well, you know what I'd say? I would say the most important thing here is to to make sure that Turkey is incapable of acting in some kind of powerful way as a nation. I would want to make sure that I could um, split and balkanize and fragment that country further if I needed to, if they ever became a problem, because you're going to be stepping them up a level. As Boris would say, we're going to allow them to level up, right? If you're going to let them climb the ladder and have a seat at the big boy table, well, you kind of need something compromising on them. If we can't have footage of them like an Epstein would have obtained, metaphorically speaking, we have to have some way to pull a lever in the country and create all kinds of problems. So, what has happened in the 10 years since I left there? And does it fit with my hypothesis? Yes, it does. They are being fucking screwed. The country is flooded with surplus population, quote unquote refugees, Arabs. All kinds of state and government resources are being sold off, sort of an Ottomanization, as others have observed. They're enormously in debt. They have huge problems with inflation, but they've got crap cans of people from everywhere, people from Somalia, people from Africa, and lots of Turks can't afford to pay their rent anymore. And they're going through a similar thing like we see in the United States, with people fleeing to the country into smaller cities because things have become untenable in the bigger cities. So I guess what I'm saying, and this is a big deal that came out of this last review of things for me, it looks like Erdogan said, all right, okay, if you'll give me a seat at the table, I'll flood Turkey with a bunch of freakish foreigners, and and change it to uh, a, a very diverse demographic picture so that you guys won't have to worry too much about how we'd be overwhelmed with nationalism and would be too big of a loose cannon, in any kind of future picture that you could imagine. It really seems to me, quite literally, that somebody sat down with Erdogan. Again, all speculation. Fuck do I know? Um, but to me, it seems highly likely that Erdogan sat down at a table and somebody told him, yeah, if you want to be a part of the big boy club, listen, this is the cost of entry. You need to flood your country with foreigners. You need to be like the rest of us. And then we can trust you, because you at that point would no longer be as much of a threat with your country operating as, and this is a thing I have to qualify, as a homogenous group. Now, I'm going to be the first one to tell you Turkish nationalism is a veneer over a highly heterogeneous population. You've got Kurds, you've got Alevis. That's a sectarian divide, nevertheless. You've got Turkmen in some areas. You've got all kinds of people of European descent. You've got serious class divisions. Nevertheless, if they're not doing it ironically, and they certainly aren't always, when they say, what is it? Ne mutlu Türk diyene. How happy is he who can say, I am a Turk? They mean it. They have a strong nationalism, and I'm sure it's been hammered at, but I'm sure it's not gone. And so while I recognize that it's a highly heterogeneous country, hopefully I haven't misused heterogeneous and homogeneous here. Who knows? When I go back and watch this at some point, I'll probably find myself saying stupid shit, but what else is new? The point is that though I will certainly grant that the seeming homogeneity of the country is a veneer and a lie in many respects, it's a lie that many Turks, to the extent necessary, accept perfectly well and hold with. Though, of course, you've got splintering in that society as a result of all of this same social engineering that we've seen elsewhere. The point is, though, that they've been hammered and fucked the way that we too have been hammered and fucked. And Erdogan seems to, if I had to get, I mean, it wouldn't be happening if he didn't want it to, or if people with more power than he couldn't force it on him. And, take a look at what's going on here. He just constantly goes after Russia. Like I said, he may have had something to do with this stuff over in Kazakhstan. Definitely, no question, had to do with backing Azerbaijanis against Russian-backed Armenians. He's over here helping in Ukraine in God knows how many ways. He's trying to stick his fingers in Russia's eyes in Syria constantly. He's doing it over here in Libya. And where's this other little headline I found? Let me find. This one is delightful. I just looked at this because I was taking a look at the business with the Sahel, and this was highly amusing. I'm like, where is Turkey going to appear next? There's this problem with energy wanting to come through the Sahel, and check this one out. This is funny. Just found this tonight. Wow. I wonder what Turkey is doing and whether or not there's a pattern that we can perceive here. Well, it looks as though indeed there is. You remember Niger, which is right there in the Sahel, immediately above Nigeria, another place where Turkey is trying to come in. And he's going to help with counterterrorism efforts. Now, Turkey has been trying to go after Russia, possibly in Kazakhstan, certainly in Azerbaijan, certainly in Syria, and certainly in Libya, and it's all associated with energy. So the simple fact that Ankara is selling weapons to Niger and trying to help them with their counterterrorism efforts, which would presumably stabilize a route for energy, means that he's playing NATO suck boy in this respect, while putting money in his coffers by selling weapons. But yeah, I just tend to think that what we see here with Turkey is that they've accepted, they've said, fine, if the price for me, metaphorically speaking, if the price for me to be a teacher is that I'm going to promote homosexuality, then that's what I need to do to be a teacher. In this respect, it's like if I want to be a top tier nation and with my already diverse economy and huge military and great geostrategic location, if I also want to be an energy power, then I'm going to have to go ahead and make sure that my country is easily fragmented. So, there I think there's something to this. I really do. Um, and I think we're going to see more that tends to suggest just that sort of thing. Now, let me jump over here and cover just a couple more things. Then I'm going to go through my notes and maybe take some questions. But this is the other one I wanted to point out. Um, Everybody should be keeping their eyes on Moldova. Um, so yeah, this map. How do I get this thing to not show as much shit? Maybe I'll do it like this. How do I do this? Terrain. What will make it show less shit? Yeah, this will work. Whatever. Okay, so let me drop out one size. Okay, so what we're looking at here is northern Black Sea littoral. This is Bulgaria. This is Romania. This is Moldova, which can sort of be considered as having been on again, off again, a part of the Kingdom of Romania. Well, what you see here, this is where Transnistria is. This is a breakaway part of Moldova, and it's one that wants to stay with Russia and refuses to go the way of the EU or whatever. To me, as I've mentioned in other streams, what this is basically a spot where Russia has decided to keep a military footprint. I've done a number of streams on this. You should have all heard about it before, where I talked about like Russia stayed here in Transnistria, Russia stayed here in Crimea, Russia flipped Abkhazia to stay here. So it didn't control the whole territory, but it kept key emplacements so that if it ever did have to mobilize, it would be on a footing to do so. I will also point out the other one, which is right here, Kaliningrad. And as I pointed out before, if you run from Transnistria to Kaliningrad and just draw a line, right here is the narrowest waist of Europe. Now, that's a vast area, of course, but if you're Russia and you're thinking about defending yourself and you want to be able to concentrate your forces, if you can get it down to this skinny little area instead of something over here, which is much larger, then you've just got more men along every, mile of length of your front. So anyway, that by way of pointing out the way in which Russia keeps key areas. Another one here is right adjacent to the old Georgian military highway, which is South Ossetia. And I don't doubt that there are some key aspects in terms of strategy and terrain with Armenia and Russia backing Armenia, the Artsakh, Nagorno-Karabakh group. So Russia has always kept these little spots. One of them that it's kept is right here, Transnistria. And, in the course of this fighting in Ukraine, I've constantly asked people to figure out, what's going on with Transnistria? Have they become active? And you can even see on some of these maps that it will show that, Russia has moved in from Transnistria. So this little area is taken. And it's bullshit, as best I can tell. They haven't. There were some things where people were trying to shoot at or blow up a couple of little government buildings in Transnistria along the river right here. Transnistria is really tiny. It's just along the Dniester River, running right along through here, and it's got some area, on I guess they call it the left bank, whatever. It's a small little enclave, but it controls the Dniester River, which runs all the way up into here, and that is a barrier. So they're essentially on two sides of that barrier, which gives them a beachhead if they wanted to move in a certain direction. Anyway, Moldova is former Bessarabia, and as I said, from about 1812, it's been, and probably at times before that, going back and forth with the Ottomans and the Russians, it's been in the Russian sphere of influence, and even today, it hasn't been incorporated into Romania. Well, I suggest that everybody keep a close eye on Moldova. Because first off, I think because of controlling coastline and European access, and just because Russia's pissed off and also some things that happened in the past with, in the past few years with massacres in Odessa. And I said this at the outset. Other people did too. I'm not the only one, but I said it on my own, not based on parroting someone. Said they're going to take all of the coastline of the Sea of Azov. They've of course gone further, um, and that they're going to take Odessa. And I believe they will. When they take Odessa, if indeed they do, but I believe they will, they're going to butt up against Transnistria right here. And that means that continuous Russia will be touching former Bessarabia, Moldova again. And that means that Moldova is very likely going to fall into the sway of Russia, either directly or indirectly. My guess is that they're not going to come in and take over Moldova and declare it a Russian possession. I think what will happen is they'll de facto control. See, if they take Odessa and move all the way down to here, because this is Ukraine also, as far as I understand it, they're going to have Moldova essentially landlocked, except for this one little bit of Moldova that projects down to the Danube. And to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if they start playing some games with the Danube running up here to the Iron Gates and Serbia, because Serbia is landlocked. The EU has blocked them with Montenegro. By the way, Chinese investment going into Montenegro. Serbia has been completely landlocked. It's one of the historical Danubian principalities, and it's a place where historically Russia's influence has extended, except they've been encircled. Montenegro, probably just through corrupt elites, has been turned against Serbia. So it doesn't look like Serbia is going to get access to the sea there. But I wouldn't be surprised if they played some game with Serbia and their ability to push their weight around with Romania and Bulgaria in order to get some major influence going with the Danube again. But we'll have to see. I do think that's just wild speculation. But this business with them connecting overland, taking away all of Ukraine's Black Sea coastline, and then basically pinching off Moldova, except for what little bit they might be able to get going out to the sea via the Danube or whatever. I think I've got those rivers right. If somebody understands it better than me, let me know. I could have some mistakes in there, but I'm pretty sure they're going to be going after Moldova. And it's not just based on this political picture. Let's take a look at some of the recent headlines. Let me see which one I'm looking for, because there's so many here and it loads so damn slowly. I'm sorry, I was reviewing each of these countries and regions that I had to look at. Don't need that one. You can go away. What's this one? Don't need that one. Where's the one I'm looking for? This is an older one. Yeah, maybe we'll come back to this. This is about Russia getting involved in Mediterranean natural gas, which I believe they will. Haven't been able to pin down any figures on Syrian reserves. Probably nobody knows what they are yet. Where's the one I'm looking for? Okay, that's about the Azerbaijani gas. Sorry, folks, I will have this in just a second. Surely. Where is it? Yes. Ha ha ha. Okay, we're going to look at two things. First, we're going to look at this article, but I'm going to look over here at the other screen because I have it pulled up on Wikipedia. Okay, so again, I think Russia is going after Moldova. Certainly the EU thinks Russia is going after Moldova. Okay, so I'm reading from over on the other side here. You can't see it on the screen, but I'm reading from the Wikipedia page on Moldova. Okay, so presidency of Maya Sandu since 2020. In November 2020 presidential election, the pro-European opposition candidate Maya Sandu was elected as the new president of the republic, defeating incumbent pro-Russian president Igor Dodon, and thus becoming the first female elected president of Moldova. Okay, if you don't feel the pause vibe, then you need to check your POSDAR, because the idea that it's the first female is exactly the kind of way they dress up their color revolutions and coups. In December 2020, Prime Minister Ioan Cicu, who had led a pro-Russian government since November 2019, resigned a day before Sandu was sworn in. The parliament, dominated by pro-Russian socialists, did not accept any prime minister candidate proposed by the new president. So what they do on 28th of April, 2021, Sandu dissolved the parliament of the Republic of Moldova after the Constitutional Court ended Moldova's state of emergency, which had been brought about by the coronavirus pandemic. Convenient that, lol. So parliamentary elections took place on 11th of July, 2021, basically a year ago. The snap parliamentary elections resulted in a landslide win for the pro-European Party of Action and Solidarity. And on 6th of August 2021, the Natalia Gavrilica led cabinet was sworn into office with 61 votes, all from the Party of Action and Solidarity. So look at what happens a year before all this goes down with Russia and the Ukraine. Just weirdly, this pro-European president gets elected, and then the entire legislative body says, no, we're not putting in one of your prime ministers. Next thing you know, parliament's dissolved, and whoop-de-doo! Moldova is all pro-European, and the entire landslide election brings them over to the European side. Okay, now let's jump over here to this, which is what's the date on this? This is from 10th of June. So this is very much current from the Sentinel. This looks, what is this? I see Sanskrit, so it's probably, or I shouldn't say Sanskrit. What am I talking about? Devanagari or whatever. The damn Indian characters. It's probably an Indian source. It's out of Assam. Sorry. Plans afoot. Yeah, and there's a reason you won't hear about this in Western press. Plans afoot to merge Moldova and Romania in the face of Russian threat. So they're going to take the historic Bessarabia, pull it back into the historic kingdom of Romania. How do they plan to do that? Wow. There's a Russian threat, and it seems immediate. These fucking pop-up ads. Get off my screen. Get fucked. Why are you on my screen? Go away. I cannot read. I fucking hate. I can't resize it to read. They just want to screw me. How do I make it go away? Do I have to click on it? Get fucked. Not interesting. Get fucked. So, sorry. Can't read the first fucking line of this article because it's got an ad in the way. Piece of shit. So, something in the Constitution of the state. This was stated by the official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry, Maria Zakharova. So, I don't know what that means. Do you know what that means? I can't fucking figure it out because of fucking ad choices. Sorry. Earlier, the ex-president of Moldova, this guy I mentioned from the Wikipedia article, Igor Dodon, warned that the authorities of the republic were preparing its military and political accession to Romania. This will be done contrary to the opinion of citizens, the politician believes. According to experts, such a scenario is indeed being considered in Chisinau, RT reported. See, we're getting some of the Russian information because we're getting it from India, which doesn't have an anti-Russian position. Anyway, take it for what it's worth. The reason for the absorption of Moldova by Romania could be the Russian threat, as well as the hopeless situation of the Moldovan economy. Such a merger of countries is capable of launching dangerous processes in the region, analysts believe, RT reported. With the start of the Russian special military operation, Western countries are increasingly pushing Chisinau towards closer cooperation with NATO. This was stated by an official representative of the Russian Foreign Ministry. Anyway, the point is here, as you can see, Russia at least wants you to believe that the EU or Romania itself is fixing to swallow up Moldova. And given what we read in the Wikipedia article about, the sudden landslide of pro-European parties, pro-European government parliamentarians, following the dissolution by, the first woman elected, it just screams of the same shit that they did with the elected government in Ukraine to install, Soros type peeps. So I would suggest that all of us should be keeping a close eye on this business going on here with Moldova. If indeed Russia, as I think they will, continues to take all of the Ukrainian Black Sea coastline, then they're going to pull uh, Moldova into their orbit and strengthen their position, I would expect, in Transnistria, which probably will take on a much more solid form and even perhaps grab some of the territory that Russia takes from Ukraine. I would also expect that once Russia gets over into that area, then you might see Transnistria being more active, which is to say, active at all as regards to the conflict between Russian forces and Ukrainian. So that is something worth thinking about. Let me just review my notes here. I'll zoom the screen back out here again so we can see the game board, as it were. I guess I don't need to be that far out. Yeah, that'll probably work. And let me just pull my face up here on screen, and I'm going to review my notes, see what I missed, and then I will take questions about this. So let's see here. EastMed projects are back on the table. Egypt is negotiating with the EU. Israel is talking about the EastMed pipeline again. Shorter pipeline to Turkey, as I mentioned. Also, their LNG facilities. The German economy minister is there, as I said. I already told you guys my theory about Turkey. Like, basically, I think they're as in the EU as they're ever going to be, and you're seeing the wonderful rewards they reap from it. Their elite get to make huge amounts of money. They do get some infrastructure built out. They do extend their diplomatic reach as a cat's paw and proxy in large part for NATO, I believe. But the country, as a result, has been screwed. All right, let's see here. I already mentioned the idea that in addition to, legitimately trying to get energy from sources other than Russia, you'll hear it over and over and over again if you check out these various sources that I've looked at, and you can find them yourself. Just search for Black Sea gas, search for Bulgaria Black Sea gas, search for Romania Black Sea gas. I already mentioned that it looks like I don't even remember. That in addition to being a legitimate play to diversify their energy resources, I think it's also the EU central planners trying to crack down to create, circumstances that provide a pretext for their green agenda and all the rest of that crap. But right now, it's immediate. They can't build enough windmills to take up the shortfall for their Russian gas. Let me see here. I mentioned going after Moldova. China's staying quiet on this. I should mention them. They do not seem to want to get involved too closely. They have not approved Russia taking Ukraine or South Ossetia or any of those things because they don't want to encourage separatism. But I don't think the Black Sea's as important for them as many other areas, and they seem to be pretty careful about not pissing Russia off, and Russia is being fairly careful about not pissing them off at this point. There's just nothing to be gained for either of them at this point if they were to get involved in this. Yeah, there are two things I have to mention. I already talked about Serbia, how they might play into this. Serbia is going to want some kind of sea access. For now, it looks like they're blocked via Montenegro, which is, I just learned, is now a NATO member. And they're on Russia's shit list as a consequence. Serbia might do something here, working out something along the Danube, because it would be within their power to create some problems along the Danube. I don't know that they would want to, because people could make bigger problems for them. But if Russia began to exert its influence and the picture in the region changed because of Russia's territorial acquisitions or de facto power on the ground, then the situation could change with Serbia. And, it was very strange. Lavrov was just recently trying to fly to Serbia. Lavrov. Wow. And you know what? They wouldn't let him cross EU airspace to land there. Weird. It must be a coincidence. So, yeah, keep an eye on Serbia. From what I've been able to tell, let me pull up what I looked at. One of these. Which one is it? Where I was looking for Romania. Nope. Man, maybe it's over here. Where is it? Yeah. Um, I did the search today, so it didn't pull up as much good shit, but Romania is blowing and going. You got signs that they're going to move quickly to Romania to pull Moldova in some fashion, whether official and territorial or just sub rosa and more economic. Um, what's her name? Jill Biden, wacky. She just had this crazy drive to go over and visit Romania recently. Jill Biden. You've also got Romanians um, uh, uh, in talks to put together their own nuclear power plant with Western support. And there's talk, yeah, where here's the one about Romania to fly military MiG-21 jets for one more year, which is just another way of saying that they're about to have their Air Force upgraded, which makes sense if you consider this picture here. If the Georgia, will see what happens. It may be if, and it seems likely that if Russia really does take all of the coastline of Ukraine on the Black Sea, then they're going to be in a much better position to pull a nutcracker um, gambit of pressure on Georgia to change how it does things. We'll see. I don't know. But basically, they will have moved over to here, and they will control a huge amount of the Black Sea in terms of what they can lay claim to. But they'll also be able to, actively do things with their navy throughout here. You look, there are two countries here that could really, be the vector for NATO to exert influence there. That's Romania and Bulgaria. The problem is Bulgaria. Let me find this one here. Doesn't seem to be fully um, drinking the Kool-Aid as regards. Where is the one I'm looking for? Sorry, I should have ordered my tabs better first, people. But uh, apparently, there's some problems with Bulgaria whistling the tune they're supposed to, because there's still plenty of pro-Russian people in Bulgaria, and they don't think Russia is the bad actor here. I mean, it's at least enough of a problem that Politico wants to report on how Bulgaria bad. Bulgaria is also very, very poor. Now they're a NATO member now, so there are definitely some complications there. But it suggests to me that Bulgaria is going to be the best way for Russia to exert its influence, to kind of open things up in Serbia and increase its influence on Europe by recapturing some of the areas where it exerted influence. Recapturing, perhaps in a strictly an economic sense, soft influence from the background. I'm not talking about them taking over Bulgaria or something. But Bulgaria seems to have a positive enough attitude towards Russia that would be the way they would want to go, which would mean that Romania is the place where the EU is going to be pushing all of its energy so that it can keep a seat at the table as regards what's going on in the Black Sea. And that indeed seems to be reflected by what we've seen, where there's talk of putting together, a nuclear power that's funded or overseen by the West, and getting new jets. And anybody can go right now and take a look, do a Google search on Romania and the latest news, and you'll see all kinds of little peep and squeak type sounds that suggest that that's where a bunch of attention is going. But I expect we're going to see some interesting things happen with Moldova. Certainly, if Russia continues. I mean, they're already into this area, if I remember correctly. So if they continue along and take Odessa, things could get very interesting, and Moldova will presumably in future be doing something besides sending house cleaners to Turkey to work. And yeah, Romania, I expect to be where the EU invests heavily in maintaining some kind of presence on the Black Sea coast. So I would expect to see development. If you haven't already seen it already, I haven't looked closely, but either developing or further developing naval installations and military cooperation and trying to prop up Romania. The thing is, where's all the money for this going to come from? The EU is in serious trouble, like many places in the rest of the world, because of all the crap that's been going on. Much of it created by them. So, yeah, Romania, I would expect to be a thing that the EU tries to bring online. But the question is, how much money do they really have, and to what extent has the corruption in Romania been mitigated? I have not been there since 1997. So I'm the wrong one to ask, but I tend to think that that's going to be a dodgy bet to put all your EU money on making Romania the new, wonder child in terms of being able to push NATO forces out into the Black Sea. However, they've got Turkey as a NATO member, but given what's going on with Turkey, I won't say it for sure, but there's every possibility that Turkey will have overextended itself. And yeah, we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. And I expect to see Russia taking real pains to bring Bulgaria back into its orbit economically and in terms of PR campaigns and the rest, because they're going to want to connect with Serbia. Otherwise, Serbia is just going to continue to fall heavily under Chinese influence. There was a op-ed that was produced within the last couple of years that appeared in the New York Times, and it was done by Alex Soros, and it was all about how the EU needs to hurry to bring these few of these other countries in the Balkans into their union. Serbia has a very strong relationship with China and a lot of Chinese investment right now. Likewise, Montenegro has gotten a lot of Chinese investment. There's actually a Chinese university now in Montenegro, and a lot of these Balkan countries, hell, probably all of them, but certainly most of them now have Confucius centers. There's a lot of Chinese stuff going on here. And it would seem that in some respects, the Soros type crew are working to some extent hand in hand with the Chinese to get this all sorted out and then to pull it in. The Chinese have real interests here with their Belt and Road stuff finally reaching Europe. Maybe they can work something out from Iran, which is as far as they've gotten. They have other routes, but also, I believe they've done a bunch of Chinese investment in Varna. So we'll see. I expect to see some Russia versus China versus EU with, you know, those three being sort of separate players, but maybe China and the EU coming together in some respects, very much behind the scenes. But I can't see Russia letting its historical relationship with Serbia go completely. It'd be too much to give up. I think it has some importance for them, and they're going to push to keep it. So I think that's everything. Let me just check over here with my on-screen notes as well. And if you guys have any questions related to all of this, I'd like to keep those questions associated with this topic. Don't go in to ask me anything questions. Hey, do I have any moderators in here? I'm seeing crap stuff in the chat. Okay, now I seem to be frozen. If you can see me, I can't see you. Well, I'll just drink until I can figure out whether or not this is still working. Yeah, Chrome seems to be frozen. Maybe I'm back. Let me see. Am I visible and audible to you guys? If I am, let me know. Okay, cool. Yeah. Charlemagne, thanks for letting me know. Okay, so let me just check my on-screen notes. See if I missed anything else. Yeah, I think it's important. One last thing that I didn't mention in all of this is that there is every possibility that if Russia comes out ahead in Ukraine, then you are likely to see Turkey forced to accept some sort of role where they partner to some extent with Russia in the energy sphere, which would tend to pull Turkey away from NATO. So we may see something like that happen. The other thing is that it is entirely possible that uh, if there's enough energy behind Eastern Mediterranean natural gas coming online as previously envisioned and heading over to Europe, that you will see Turkey and Israel cooperate sort of half comfortably. So, yeah, that seems to be the picture. So, let me get over here to the other chat, the one actually produced by um, YouTube instead of the one running off a StreamYard. I will light myself a last cigarette and see if anybody has any questions for me. Ladies and gentlemen, any questions for me? The return of geopolitical analysis to the Semiagog channel, and there will be more of it. Um, Again, I know a lot of people started following this channel because of that kind of content. Since Tim died, I haven't done much of it. And what I have done is usually on other people's channels where they bring me on to talk about some of this stuff. But I'm going to be doing more of it because I'm getting back into it. Although I do want to find a proper co-host for this because I think the energy is going to be better. I need someone who looks at things differently than I, and who will also push back on my ideas. Maybe also bring their own. So I'm out there. I'm out there looking. I'll be recruiting. So yeah, what do we have here for questions? Somebody asked, do I think Turkey is a secret Israeli agent? No. Prudentialist, I want to recommend his channel highly. He's not only someone whose content I also follow, and I respect his take on things, and he stays very up on geopolitics. He's also a buddy, so yeah, Prudentialist is great. The thing is, he already has his own channel doing geopolitical analysis. We've collaborated before with things, I believe, on his channel and on mine, and I'm sure that'll happen in future. But he's kind of got his own thing going. I recommend him highly. I recommend the whole Licorice All Sorts crew. So yeah, Apostolic Majesty, Charlemagne, Skeptical Waves, Aaron McIntyre, the Prudentialist, Mr. Patriarch. I mean, all those guys are. I consider them peeps. Maven, Time Stealer. I'm already forgetting people, and so forgive me. Evelyn, they're all friends. So I recommend all of them. So damn it, let me light this cigarette and see what questions I might be missing. Yeah, I love Millennial Woes. Is I consider him a friend too. I have not seen him, though he's perfectly capable and his mind is first water, excellent. I don't see him getting into geopolitics that much, but I'd love to do content with him in future, and perhaps will. So what do we got for questions? Now it's refreshing. Sorry guys, it's going to take me a second to get sorted. Tuesday FA Tuesday says, Semigog, do you think we'll see a wave of electoral coup d'etats in Eastern Europe as the 2020s drag on in an effort to preserve democracy? That's kind of outside the scope. I think you're always going to see color revolutions and quiet backroom coup d'etats and power shifts. That's the nature of the animal. Again, I want to keep these questions focused on the topic from this evening, which is certainly broad enough, because I want people who come to the channel, see that thumbnail, turn it on. They want to watch for this reason. Let's keep it focused on that for them, if you would please. Gents and ladies, Glow in the Dark says, Semiagog, what are the odds that the West reorients its MIC towards peer opponents Yeah, that's outside the scope. Well, I guess it's not outside the scope because it deals with Russia. They're doing it right now. Um, Look at, well, let me read the question. Sorry. What are the odds that the West reorients its military industrial complex towards peer opponents instead of goat herders in the desert in the event of a total UA loss? Um, would they continue course no matter what? I don't know what they're going to do, but they're certainly already changing their. I mean, we just have the damn spear or whatever rifle, the M5, which is designed, we are told, or has been adopted, we are told, in order to give the U.S. the capability to penetrate the body armor that we would expect that peer rivals like China or Russia are. Would be wearing. I mean, yeah. I mean, from the arms of the 11 Bravos all the way up to certainly vehicles and the rest, and hypersonic missiles. We're in the midst of reorienting the military-industrial complex for that very thing. 99 Iron Duke says Greece and Turkey are both in NATO, but the Greek armed forces are still mostly aimed at fighting Turkey. Yes, that's correct. I'm also glad. Hello, by the way. Check out 99 Iron Duke's channel. It's also important to point out that Greece might be a real thorn in the side of the EU planners who want to do things more with Turkey, because it's going to increasingly piss Greece off. Now, does that matter in the big scheme of things in Brussels or in Berlin or Paris? No, but I have to think that the Greeks could, if they decided they wanted to, could create a headache for Brussels, particularly, for example, if they got pissed off enough to form a coalition with some of the other outsiders. But we'll have to see if that all comes down. Got a statement from Lance Corporal Veteran. Hello, sir, but it's not a question. So got a question about Taiwan. Let's keep it focused on the current subject. Charlemagne asks a good question. Z Central Academic Agency is trying to get me to turn on super chats. Maybe one day I will, and thank you, sir, for the idea. Charlemagne says, is Turkey shifting more towards the West or Russia? I think we're looking at the knife edge right now where Turkey is figuring out what it's going to do. I think I mean, lots of people think that they're economically overextended. So it's entirely possible that they're going to have to turn to some other, they're going to have to turn to someone to get their economy propped up. I think that happened once already, though it was a very behind the scenes thing, when they were up around, whatever, God, I don't even remember what it was, 15, 17 Turkish lira to the dollar or whatever it was. It was crazy. And then suddenly it stabilized down at only 11 Turkish lira to the dollar. And I know that they've gotten Chinese money in the past. What am I trying to say here? Are they going to the West or towards Russia? I think it could go either way. That's what I mean by the knife edge, depending on what happens in Ukraine and what the reality of the situation in the Black Sea is, and also what their economic situation is. It could, if the Western economies crash as badly as the Turkish one already is, and we're surely getting there. I mean, we ain't going in the other direction. We seem to be going towards that. If all those economies crash around the same time, I expect it would affect Russia and China as well, certainly. But Russia having already been forced to decouple and deal with a few uncomfortable transitions, Russia might be in a better position to support Turkey going forward and could cut a deal with them in terms of Black Sea energy and, at least in theory, bring them on side. So I think that is the big question of this time. Is Turkey shifting more towards the West or Russia? You can remember this stuff. I know you know about it, Maine, the business with the F-35 program, or Turkey buying Russian air defense missile systems. I think that's what we're looking at right now, is Turkey playing the coy game of saying, maybe I'll do something with Russia, but clearly what all their foreign stuff where they're getting involved in East Africa, they're getting involved now in Niger, they're involved in Libya, former Ottoman African dominions and beyond. they're trying to play a bigger role, and in large part, it seems as the step and fetch it boy for NATO, except when they don't. Well, at least insofar as they see it serving their interests too, because if they block these other, they want to block the many of the same routes for energy coming to Europe that Russia does, but they want to block them so that they can provide it rather than Russia. Um, but we'll have to see. We'll have to see what direction it goes, and I don't know what direction it will. Though I still believe that Russia is going to be victorious by some standard, by some clear standard. Maybe not everything they wanted, but I think they're going to be victorious by a clear standard in Ukraine. That's going to change to a considerable extent the balance in the Black Sea, and you know, Turkey's going to have the question of whether or not it wants to stick with the EU and NATO and the further diversification of their society. By this, I mean, you know, immigrants from Africa and people fucking in the street in Bebek, um, or whether they want to maybe go a route where they get dealt in on some of the energy action with Russia. But there's long-standing historical patterns that would argue that they're most likely to stick with the West. And to ride that wave with them. I don't know, man, because when shit falls apart, that's the time. That's the great remaking, you know, just like we see now. Build back better. What do you have to do before you can build back better? Well, destroy everything, obviously. And every time I hear build back better, I think, oh yeah, it's somebody talking about how they want to destroy everything first. Okay. Thanks, Charlemagne, for that. I recommend Charlie's channel as well. As I said earlier, Man Ray of Hope is asking me about some other YouTuber. I don't know him. I'll check him out. Tuesday, FA Tuesday says, Semigog, post-Ukrainian war, do you think Russia will look at getting involved with Romania? That is, if Putin lasts that long amidst his many health crises. Yeah, I don't put much stock in those. And you can be sure, though it hasn't been discussed, he's got someone ready to roll if he drops. I don't know. Romania, I tend to think, is going to be the country that the EU tries to give as many apples and cotton candies and treats to, because they want to keep that coastline access. And I think that Putin, as I said, is going to focus his attention probably on Bulgaria, because if he captures that in some respect, maybe just economic, again, not taking the territory, then that puts him up against Serbia and gives Serbia access via Bulgaria and the Danube to the Black Sea. All right. Next question. Actually, this is a good last one, and then I'm going to have to cut this. I want to keep it at 2 hours. This is from Joshua Ham, and this is something I had to I should have mentioned and did not. So thanks for reminding me. Do you think Turkey is gainsaying NATO expansion because they don't want the bear to go full aggression? If bear goes full righteous crusade, would it put Turkey in Russia's crosshairs? Russia doesn't need to come up hard against Turkey. It's already got any number of Turkic groups in its spheres in Central Asia, and lots of them, you know, from Bakshir all the way over to Kalmyks, and you know, there are tons of these ethnic groups within the former Soviet Union, former Russian Empire. They don't need a full-on fight with Turkey. So yeah, I don't see them, you know, putting Turkey in the crosshairs or whatever. That would be too big of a balance of power shift, and everyone would come running in and saying no, no, no. However, it's good, and this is what I was talking about earlier, that you brought this up vis-a-vis Finland and Sweden entering NATO. I saw in the headlines in the last couple of days that Finland and Sweden participated in NATO exercises in the Baltic. So they definitely want that to happen. But yeah, Turkey, I think my take is along the lines of what I've already discussed about how Turkey's waiting to see what's going to happen. Aç ayı oynamaz. The hungry bear does not juggle. They're waiting to see what goes down in the Ukraine, what the new picture in the Black Sea is going to be like. They've already indicated that they can buy missile systems from Russia, even to the point that they get pulled from the F-35 development program. Um, they've But they've gone after Russia enough, clearly, in a few places that NATO's not going to disavow them yet. They're trying to walk that middle line. Um, I think that they're going to, and I could be wrong, and I'm not sure about this, but like, let's say I'm 51% that that Turkey is going to block Sweden and Finland's accession, and 49% that they'll do it, that they'll allow it, mainly because they need to still have something on the table to say, look, we did this, we did this, we did this. Aman tanrım ya, her şey yapmadık ya. Tek bir şey yapmadık. Um, uh, Basically, they're going to say, look, we caused you problems, yes, but we can happily work together because after all, we did you this kind favor. We did you this kind favor. Yeah. We didn't allow Sweden and Finland to come in. So my impression is that they're going to hold off on that. That gives them some sort of little biscuit to go to Russia with and say, we did fuck with you, but now that the situation's changed, surely we can still work together because you said it was very important to you that you didn't want this. We didn't do it. And all those other things we did, it was only because of the pressure of, the crew that we were in. But, between men of goodwill, surely all differences are small. So that's my take on that. Now, we have come to the end of this. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank the Praetorian Chads who make this channel possible. I want to thank you all for joining me this evening for the return of geopolitical analysis. Remember, I'm looking for a co-host. If you know anybody excellent, let me know. And there will be more of this going forward, as I expect things are just going to get increasingly interesting in terms of what's going on out there in the world, which is, along the lines of the old alleged curse, may you live in interesting times. So, yeah, it seems increasingly likely that there's going to be all kinds of opportunities to review the Great Game Board. So yeah, this is dedicated to Mr. Tim Rudisil, who is no longer with us, who started this whole Chain Smoke series of geopolitical analysis and strategy with me. I'll do my best until I find a new co-host with driving it on my own, and I hope you will join me in future to check out the next streams. As I said, there's a one coming up where I expect I'll be speaking with Philosophicat over on her channel. I hope to talk to a certain poet who wears a hat in the near future. And what was the other one? Yeah, Antaeus on, let me get the time on that just so I can tell you. This Sunday, I think it is. Where is it? I closed all these applications because my crappy old computer I'm using right now is slow. Yes, the Antaeus stream. I still have to lock it down with him, but I believe it will be 4 p.m. Eastern on Sunday the 12th. And that will be on the Masonic commune in Paris in the 19th century. So I hope you will join me for that. Until next time, I am Semiagog. Thanks very much for watching. I am Semiagog, and I am out.